So here we are, Friday after the Temu inauguration of the Tinkle Tape Trader, and eggs are more expensive. There's still a war in Ukraine, but at least he's reversed a decades-long protection against workplace discrimination, freed the January 6th terrorists, all of them, made medication more expensive, gotten into a protracted fight with a pastor, and shut down our public food and health agencies. A womanizing, raging alcoholic day drunk who never so much as led a Girl Scout troop armed with Thin Mints to the front of a fucking Walmart is about to be tapped to run our Defense Department. The most rabidly dangerous Trump-pumping January 6th mouth-breathing troglodytes have been handed a lifetime get-out-of-jail-free card, and the FDA, CDC, and NIH have been closed for the season. So reason? It's freezing? Which has all left our collective health and safety looking like a 14-year-old movie usher sitting on the curb outside a suburban mall in pre-cell phone 1984 while waiting for his pink puka shell necklace-wearing big brother Rocco to come and pick him up after work. And only Rocco's not coming anytime soon, so the usher has to walk in the dark through the bad part of town alone. All of this while the melting circus peanut prattles on about who knows what the fuck on state TV Fox. The cult explains away their exploding penis rocket Hitler's not once but twice Nazi salute on his autism and Star Trek, and nose candy Nepo baby Don Jr. travels the world with engorged tickhead king of the incels Charlie Kirk in search of homeless island people they can pay to pretend to love America. The same so-called president of the United States who granted freedom to the white supremacists who beat up the police in his name is demanding an apology from the pastor who asked him to show mercy on our fellow man in the name of Jesus Christ. He's left the Paris Climate Accord and the World Health Organization, expanded the death penalty, and made an unconstitutional arrangement with a social media platform his own party says is Chinese spyware. And apparently, shockingly, none of those things is going to make the price of eggs any lower. In fact, the price of eggs is higher and also in a shortage because we are in the middle of a bird flu we don't have any public information about. But hey, Doge is already so efficient they've managed to cut the number of billionaires in charge of it in half. So at least there is that. We're being told that January 6th was peaceful, that Donald Trump has restored the rule of law, and that all of this absolutely upside-down dystopian hellscape oligarch batshittery is America becoming great again. It's a lot. It's a fucking lot. It's like we're taking an involuntary road trip in the back of a beat-up conversion van driven by a blind raccoon hopped up on ketamine, and the only radio station they can get to tune in plays Superstar by the Carpenters on a loop all day long. My guest today is Michael Cohen, the one and only Michael Cohen. Michael and I talk about things in only the way Michael and I can. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation as much as I do. See you next week. Bye. Welcome back to the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast. Michael Cohen. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm okay. You know, I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, how are you holding up? You know, Donald is now 47. He's the, president of the United States. Are you worried? Are you nervous? And my answer is no. Why should I be? Right? You know, the country is still the country, even though the individual that is running the country, our commander in chief, may be angry at me, may want some retribution from me, but I still have to believe that the Department of Justice, that the members of Congress will ultimately hold strong and not permit people's constitutional rights to be trampled on, as was done in his first administration. So I'm all good.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, well, keep checking in because I'm like, I'm not saying that you should be worried. I don't want to tell you that because I don't want to say that to anybody, but I'm also, all bets are off with him as far as it goes. And we need to remember to check in on each other, but also what people need to remember is that he doesn't have.
Well, you're supposed to check in on me because we're friends.
Exactly.
More than anything else. Not
exactly.
The politics nonsense.
Exactly.
right?
Fuck the politics. It is 100%. And I'm grateful to the universe for being as weird as it is to make this a reality where, yes, you are my friend and I care about you. And I genuinely do, as you know. So, like, yes, as a person, I'm going to check in on you, but also, like, because, well, what we just saw, let's just talk about this. So, we're both friends with Harry Dunn. Let's talk about how that hit for you when, like, on a lot of levels, when he pardoned those, the worst offenders on January 6th. I don't call them rioters. I call them domestic terrorists. He pardoned criminals who gouged out eyes, tased, beat with flagpoles, beat with their own shields, brutalized our Capitol Police. They have been pardoned. So how did that hit for you? What are your thoughts on that now? How do we reconcile that?
So obviously, I pretty much know Donald better than almost anybody else that's out there. All these newbies that are running around him, doing the YMCA dance and skipping, on the stage and jumping up, with their low cut t-shirts. They don't know Trump like I do. Even I was shocked that he pardoned every single one. I knew he was going to. Why? Because he said so. And he has every single intention of making every promise a reality that he said while he was on the campaign trail. They're not difficult promises. They're unusual promises, but they're not impossible or even difficult for him. Specifically, the power of the pardon. The president's power of the pardon is unlimited. It is unchecked. It is the one power granted to the commander in chief, to the president of the United States, that is without question his and his alone. It is what's called a power of one, plain and simple. In fact, if I was still around him and become a big issue about these pardons of the 1,500 plus, including the ones that were the violent offenders, if I was him or his people going out there, I would turn around and say, you're allowed to think whatever you want. And I respect what you think, but the power of the pardon belongs to one person and only one person, and that's the president of the United States. He made a decision for whatever the reason may be, which I'm not even going to discuss with you, because he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to justify why he's granting the pardon. He promised that he was going to do it during the election, and he's living up yet again to another campaign promise. Instead, they're trying to whitewash history. They're trying to tell you, Joe, that you didn't see what you saw. You didn't hear what you heard. That the individuals who were actually tased, who were beaten, who were smashed across the head with a flagpole, who were tased in the neck, and when they finally came through, they tased them again. Don't listen to their stories. They're over exaggerating. It's almost like a soccer flip-flop. Right? Where the guy gets touched on the shoulder and he does a backflip, lands on his head and looking for a red card. No. That's the way that he should have done it, instead of trying to whitewash history and trying to fool everyone as to don't trust your lying eyes or your ears.
Mm-hmm. And to that end,
it's funny. Right after that happened, I called Harry. Mm-hmm. And I asked him how he's holding up. I'm sorry, I'm thankful that he and others got pardons by Joe Biden on the way out for fear of retaliation. I think Biden screwed the fucking pooch on that one. He left dozens and dozens and dozens of other people, myself included, out there to hang. People who are on someone's enemies list. Mm-hmm. And again, with the power of the pardon, I don't know why they were making such a big thing out of it, considering it's a power that belongs specifically to the president.
Yeah. Has
no unusual, oversight. but not improper.
Yeah, and it has no oversight, no checks. No, there is
Nope.
it's absolute, like you said, and we've seen presidents use it at whatever discretion they've chosen. Trump, Jared Kushner's dad, et cetera, et cetera. Certainly used the
So,
powers.
Joe, what happens if hypothetically Cash Patel goes after Cassidy
I
Hutchinson,
don't think it's a hypothetical.
Alyssa Farah Griffin,
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie Grisham,
Mm-hmm.
Stormy Daniels,
Mm-hmm.
myself, and a bunch of other people?
Yep.
What happens if they go after Hillary Clinton? What happens if they decide to go after Joe Biden? He didn't pardon himself
No, he didn't. And Trump ominously said he
stupidly,
should have the other day. Trump said he
right?
should have, which,
Because Trump knows exactly what he intends to do.
yeah. Yep.
They will go after Joe Biden. And
Yep.
the funny thing, at the age of 80, and a guy who is not a young 80,
Mm-mm.
that's the kind of thing that puts a pressure on. You don't know what it's like to be sued by Donald Trump. You don't know what it's like to be indicted or to be investigated by the federal government, by the Department of Justice. I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, for a guy who was in his mid 50s when it was going on,
Mm-hmm.
it hurts. It crushes your mind, your heart, your soul, your finances. It
Yep.
crushes everything. So imagine now an 80-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
See what happens.
Yeah, I think so much of this is so much of what he's already done is retribution based. He was just asked about because last night he ended the Secret Service protection for Anthony Fauci. He already did John Bolton and others. Mike Pompeo, which hey Mike Pompeo, great work there. You thought you kissed the ring enough, didn't you? But you
Right.
didn't. Good job, bud. But he was asked about Fauci in particular and Bolton because both of them, as you know, Donald Trump, by the way, is one who has unleashed a mob against both of those two men. But he was asked if he would feel any responsibility if any harm came to them now that they didn't have Secret Service protection. And he said, no, no. But it's worse than that. It's not just that he wouldn't care. There's some part of me that is like, he's sort of goading. He's sort of like, and the same thing with these 1,600. Oh, well, let's just take however many of the really violent ones. There's almost like this, like, go get them. Like, you guys go out there and get my enemies. Like, I'm not going to stop you. And I've
Oh,
made
well,
it
let me say
clear that
this,
I'm not going to
Jojo.
stop you.
Yeah, but let me say this. One thing that Donald did turn around and say is that he made enough money. He's a rich guy. If he's concerned about his welfare, he could easily hire a security team. He could hire a detail. We shouldn't have to pay for it. He doesn't want him as part of NIH or any aspect of Health and Human Services. So why should we be paying for his detail? Can't argue with him on that one, by the way, right?
Mm,
If he's not a part of the system any longer, what
mm.
is
We have a
it's
tradition of
he's not
protecting them,
the
though.
only one who gets Secret Service protection after their position is supposed to be the president.
Yeah, but family members get it for some length of time, and his was expanded for his family members, by the way, as well. But I will just say that we've done this in the past. There is lots of precedent as it pertains to public servants who are under particular threat, as John Bolton was and continues to be. There's a tradition in our government of doing that, right, out of like sort of the responsibility that comes with the office. And
But that is ultimately decided by the president of the United States. This president has decided that he does not want to extend that courtesy.
not
And
out of a
again,
financial concern,
while I don't, it's not about financial
right?
concern,
It's
right? It's about
retribution,
taking away something from someone who he doesn't like.
right?
And, for whatever his reason may be. See, this is where people get angry at me. I
Mm-hmm.
try to explain reality,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Well, why are you bending the knee? Why are you protecting Trump?" I am not.
No,
I'm merely stating facts. I'm
right.
stating reality. And if you don't want to hear the reality, number one, you won't know how to fight it. But two, you should move to Florida or California and live in Disneyland. And you can lunch every day with one of the dwarfs or one of the princesses or Mickey and Minnie and Goofy and Pluto. And you should just hang out there in Cinderella's castle
Too
drinking
expensive.
tea. But here's the reality. The reality is, while it might have been a norm in the past,
Mm-hmm.
one thing we all know about Trump, he is not the prototypical president. He wasn't the prototypical president in 17, and he ain't going to be it again in 2025.
Far
All
from
right?
it.
Plain and simple. It's
Hmm.
just so when he turns around and says, I'm not giving it to Fauci. Well, in the past, people have fucked the past. He doesn't care about that. He only cares about what he wants to do. But he is, in this specific case, operating within his rights.
In
Now,
many of them.
people are saying, oh my God, I can't believe.
In many
What's
of the
that?
cases. In many cases, that is true.
I
Like you
didn't say
said.
all. I'm talking about
Right.
specifically Fauci.
Right. No,
Yeah.
and I agree with you. That's the thing too. So with Donald Trump, what I've always believed is that if there is a crack or a fissure or a tiny little fracture in some kind of system that he can inhabit and open up and exploit, he will, and that is government, right? We've seen this time and time again. There are, however, lots of things that he is doing that are not within his powers. He is doing unconstitutional things with this threat to end birthright citizenship. That is actually not constitutional. He's already having ICE raids where they're detaining American citizens. They got a U.S. veteran in Newark the other day. That is not
In
within his
Newark,
right.
New Jersey, yesterday, ICE raided a business and they detained the entire group of them, both immigrants and also American citizens.
One of which is a vet.
Right. There's an issue there. By the
Mhm.
way, it was a warrantless detention as well,
Mm.
which I found to be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too. There's all these, it's flooding the zone, right? So it feels like all of this is being thrust upon us so fast. It's that shock and awe where it's almost as if there's so many fronts. So it's like some things are within his power, some things are not within his power. He's sort of degrading the norms, like the TikTok thing. Congress already passed this law. It's settled. Like he can't actually undo what they've passed, birthright citizenship, et cetera. He's using our military within our borders, which is like, well, where's the argument on that? That's not
Joe,
within his right.
they're putting up already banners on the number of individuals who are being deported and or detained. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
Like when we had COVID-19 and they had the running banner of the number of people who were sick and the number of people who were dying each day, every single day they're going to put up this banner. It's a immigration deportation banner that shows the number of detained and the number deported. They're making this into what's the right word? It's almost like a
reality show, game show.
A reality TV show. Yeah.
It's almost like the Hunger Games, honestly. And did you see that Fox is now airing they're filming like it's cops, like they're filming raids and then they're airing them on their channels so that it's like it looks like a reality TV show, only this is
why not?
Right.
Why not? I mean, Cops has been on for like 20 years already. So if they can do this every single, and they will.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you the reason behind the filming of this. First of all, I'm sure Mark Burnett is probably going to make this into some sort of a series, right, where Trump Productions is going to get a piece to this thing.
Yeah.
And don't forget, I used to be co-president of Trump Productions. So we're making a very hefty piece out of this, but also because it shows and it plays well to his base. Now, this is an issue that is more bipartisan, certainly, than pulling back on birthright citizenship. This plays very well as a bipartisan issue. You cannot, right, just come to this country, walk in, and then just stay here indefinitely, and then ultimately declare yourself to be American. A lot of people on both sides of the aisle agree with that. Now, where we disagree is their process for doing this. They want internment camps. We want to be more humane. They want separate wives from husbands, husband and wives from their children, like what happened in 2017. There's still like 1,000 kids that have been separated from their parents now for 7 years. Imagine that. You don't know whether your child's dead or alive. You don't know whether your child is being fed and cared for in a good place or living on the street. I mean, as a parent, it's heart-wrenching. And anybody that has looked down and seen that their kid isn't standing right next to them. And we've all been through that. You know, my
Yeah.
daughter hid once. We were at a Neiman Marcus in Palm Beach, and she just went behind the clothes. Literally 1 second, I just looked down
That's the
and she
worst.
was gone. I mean, that panic that goes through, imagine 7 years, it's just heartless. It
Hmm.
just lacks empathy. But MAGA wants to be heartless. They want to be, they want to be cruel. And that's where I believe Republicans and Democrats differ. But we all acknowledge that our immigration system is broken, has been for the last 50 years, and needs change. I'm just not so sure that we agree with the extent of the change and the manner to which effectuates.
Right. And what that's sort of so much of this to me, Michael, what obviously worries me, I'm sure worries a lot of people, may worry you, is the lack of the humanity that is, it's the depravity that is on display here with all of this. Like all of these pieces together, whether it's the pardons of the violent criminals who attacked our Capitol police officers, or, you know, this horrific, like, who cares? Let's just take them all, kind of put that on TV. These are human beings, but we're still going to use them as props. And this is their lives. And these are people who've probably been working here, not committing crimes, because largely they don't. Actually, they commit fewer crimes on average in people who come here than people who live here. But there is this, and again, some of the people that he's lifting up, like Pete Hegseth, who has his own sort of record of, you know, issues with abusing women and drinking on the job. And Donald Trump himself, as you know, is a convicted felon who has been an adjudicated sexual abuser and adjudicated business fraud. There is this sort of like degradation of the moral fabric that is at this country's heart. I still believe that. But also, because he doesn't have a mandate, because he didn't get the majority, actually, in a lot of different cases, as it pertains to the January 6th terrorism as one, this is not what the majority of the American people want. And I wonder, like, how much of this, like the bulk of the people who maybe voted for him because they didn't like Kamala or whatever, are going to be like, you know what, this is too far. This is too much. This is not what I thought I voted for. And the price of eggs hasn't gone down.
Right. Well, let me say that they ain't seen shit yet, because it'll start out with things like this, where a group of ICE agents show up to a business, they surround it, they parade everybody out, they make their own specific determination on who is and who is not legal. What's going to happen down the road when that's no longer exciting to the base? Because Trump, for all these successes that he has, whether it's in real estate or politics, he's really a showman. He
Mm-hmm.
really always wanted to be. He told this to me. He really wanted to be an actor
Huh.
when he was younger. He didn't want to go into real estate. He wanted to be an actor. What happens when it's no longer exciting anymore, right? That the excitement of watching yet another raid, right, is just, the ratings are going down. What is he going to do? Well, he'll advise them, ramp it up,
Mm-hmm.
ramp it up. Let one run and shoot him, or sick a dog on him, right? Something to make people be like, oh my God, holy shit. Until we're going to finally end up like that old movie, you're too young for it, but it was called The Running Man.
Oh,
With
no, I'm not
Arnold.
too old for
Oh,
that. I read
stop
the
it.
book. Michael, I
Stop.
read the short story by Stephen
Yeah,
King.
yeah, sure you did.
I did.
Sure you did,
I
JoJo.
did. When it
People
came
from
out.
Jersey don't read.
That fuck you. Fuck you. We know how to read. You want to know how to read? This
There
right
you
here.
go.
That's how
Yeah,
you
read
read.
between the lines.
No,
Yeah,
I read the book. Short story.
yeah. So with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was hosted by Richard Dawson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where they pitted individuals against one another, and the winner, because everybody else gets killed in the running game, the winner actually gets their freedom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Sounds like it's something that we could be seeing. Wide world, right? Wide world of immigrant.
Well, he did say he wanted public executions when he was running. Do you remember that? He said he
Yeah,
thought
he
the race should
wanted
be
to
televised.
publicly Millie.
Yeah, well, exactly. Which, yeah, to your point, and Millie did get a pardon, but you and I disagreed about whether or not, like off camera, whether or not Trump pardons will stop Trump. Because honestly, I just don't see any guardrails really stopping him. I
It's
see him
not going to
testing
stop him.
everything. Yeah.
Oh, I've always maintained it's not going to
Oh,
stop
you
him.
don't think so?
No, 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 no. In fact, I was talking to, I don't even want to say to who, but somebody who is also not revered much or at all by President Trump. And I turned around and I said, even those who have pardons are only federal. He will use the state, especially governors of red states, to go after these individuals any opportunity that comes his way. Very much like the Georgia case, very much like the New York Attorney General case, very much like the Manhattan DA case. He is going to, even those that are pardoned, he is going to figure out a way how to circumvent the federal pardon and to make it a state crime and go after them regardless.
Well, that's terrifying, but yeah, no, and again, I don't disagree with you. I mean, he found ways to use the levers of government like the IRS to go after his enemies in the past, and there's nothing that would stop him from, certainly not. There's really fewer guardrails, if there are any at all now, around what he would do or not do or try and not try. But I want to talk about something else too, sort of a little bit of a pivot, because this one really freaks me out, because as we know, we all lived through the pandemic and we lived through his, it's not my responsibility, it is what
Was
it
that a
is.
shortage of conditioner?
What's that?
A shortage of hair conditioner?
No, what are you talking
Because
about?
your hair looks fantastic today.
Oh, thank you very much. No, I did my own blowout, Michael. I did it. I was like, I was in a bit of a like I
The
never.
last time I saw you, you were like, okay, don't look at my hair right now. It was humid outside.
Oh,
Not when
forget it.
when we
No,
were in
it's not.
Chicago.
It's winter, so we straighten it. But I give myself a blowout. But no, for real. Like I'm very worried about this because you probably seen this. He froze all the external communications of the FDA, the CDC, the NIH. He froze all the panels, all the travel, all the testing, all the hiring, all the stuff. But this thing that scares me so much as bird flu is out there is that we are not, the public is like not going to get information related to our food, our public health, pandemics or infectious diseases. There's not going to be cancer research panels. I'm really freaked out about this. And I don't think that's insane because even the NIH people are like, well, we've had pauses, but this is different. I mean, like, is he going to,
No,
do you think?
this is the end of those programs, including child cancer research, which if you're not going to care about child cancer, what can you possibly really care about?
Right.
I mean, children, as the song goes, children are our future. And cancer is just such a horrible thing. Put the two together. How do you stop programs
They're so
to
pro-life.
eradicate childhood cancer? I mean, but let's look on the bright side. He just declassified the assassination of MLK, of JFK, and RFK. I mean, we should all be very thankful.
Mm.
I
Well, I don't
understand
compare
that
those two things though.
very soon they're going to release as well. They're
Epstein?
going to release alien information.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
fine. That's
yeah.
fine. But I'm not really.
Did you notice that they didn't release any of the information on the Epstein
Of course
files?
not, because he's all over those flight logs, and it was his buddy, and his kids called him uncle, right? But that stuff doesn't keep me up at night. What keeps me up at night is like I don't give a shit about the price of eggs. I like eggs as much as the next guy, but I want to know that my food is safe that I'm putting on my table for my kids. You know what I mean? I want to know, like, oh shit, is there a new pandemic that I don't know about? Like, is there some way I can protect my family that you're not telling me? Like that stuff freaks me out, and that information desert. That's where the chaos ensues, and that's where authoritarians and dictators and despots, that's where they really seize the most control, is in crisis and chaos of their own creation. And I think that that's what he's doing. I don't really give a shit about those. I don't give a shit about the declassifying of that stuff. I really just don't care. I'm sure people do, but I don't even think the King family was consulted before he did this, or the Kennedy family before he did this. And by the way, that's where you should have started, to be honest. And because he didn't do Epstein, which is insane to me, but also very telling, I don't think it's a great public service.
If you think that's telling, 2 seconds after, I shouldn't say 2 seconds, during the first day of his administration, my daughter texted me. She goes, is there a problem in DC? And I said, yeah, I would think so. Why do you ask? And she goes, there's a reproductiverights.gov website it's down. It says
Yeah.
it no longer exists.
Yeah.
They killed all of those online websites for people to go and to get information on women's health.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we're going right back to Handmaid's Tale scenario and turning America into Gilead. And, I said it early on, and I truly didn't believe that he was going to do everything that he said he was going to do. Over the course of years, Trump has made quite a few promises that he didn't keep, because after he ultimately got what he wanted, here it's out of accountability. He got the presidency again. I didn't think that he was going to act in the manner as we're seeing it, which is to effectuate every single one of those promises. But he is.
Yeah.
But he is. And he intends to do them.
And
each and every one.
All driven by retribution and revenge and personal grievance. And speaking of that, he also talked today about ending FEMA. But he also has said this many times, and he did this actually in his first term. He's really talking about withholding federal aid from blue states, right? Like he talked about with COVID and withholding COVID aid and supplies from blue states. But he's already tried this with California one time, and now he's talking about ending FEMA overall. But there are these little differences between the way he talks about it for North Carolina and the way he talks about it for California.
Well, because 88%, according to whoever it was that he was talking to at the hearing, turns out 88% of the county that's affected voted for you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wanted to say to the guy, you know the difference between a brown nose and an ass kisser? Depth perception. Right. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, this guy's blowing smoke up his ass. And then he started talking about California and how, had they listened to him 7 years ago, none of this would even happen. None of this would have ever happened. It would never have happened.
Maybe science
there would have never been a
know.
fire. No fire. We would flush, all the water would come this way instead of going into the Pacific. It would go right into the farms. Everybody would have water. Today, only rich people like to shower. Poor people, they don't like to shower. But you're only going to be able to get 28 gallons. I don't even know where these numbers are coming from. Who's feeding him this ridiculousness where it's like, how about turn around and say, with all due respect, Mr. President, there's a lot of people in California that voted for you. Right? People in Malibu. I know people in Malibu.
Sure.
I don't even talk to them anymore. I mean, that's how MAGA stupid that they are. They were extreme MAGA and extremely rich too. Their houses are gone, right? People in the Palisades. You think everybody in the Palisades voted for Kamala? No. All right. Maybe the state as a whole ended up going blue, but even like New York, the state of New York saw a massive response to Trump in this past election.
Oh, yeah. Big swings in Jersey, too.
Yeah. So, Jersey's for a long time been more red for the president than blue. But I'm with you on that. So turn around and you take New York, take California. You take these historic blue states. But there's large swaths of the state that are red, and yet those people don't count because the totality of the state, right? It's kind of like an odd thing, right?
Right. Well, there's so many instances of them voting against their own best interests. But this one, it's like he will let you die. He'll let your house flood or burn down. He's not a president for all Americans. He never even pretended to be. Ever, never, ever. That's not something, a mantle he holds himself up on. And he did that in 2020. We know that. And he was unable to get away with a lot of it. But I just keep thinking to myself, like, when will these people who voted for him, because much of Jersey where I live is very red. It's the cities that are blue, but like the bulk of the actual land where people
when they're gonna realize it? When Trump's foot kicks him right in the coccyx. Yeah. All right. Your price of your eggs so far, since Trump took presidency, has increased.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the gas station yesterday. Price per gallon, it's the
Mm-hmm.
same.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same. There's
Right.
been no change. The war in Ukraine,
Still going.
between Ukraine and Russia, still rages on. Okay, I will turn around and say that 3 hostages have been released. There's a ceasefire. And you know what? And I said this, and again, a lot of people got angry at me, and I don't give a shit because my world, I live in reality. Even if Steve Witkoff, who I happen to know for over 20 years, who is his ambassador or his part of his envoy to the Middle East, even if on behalf of Trump or Trump himself is 1% responsible, even 1%, he'll tell you he's 99%, even if it's somewhere between 1 to 99. But even if he's 1% responsible for the return of those hostages, for that, I say thank you. I'm certain that the families of those people are thanking him and everybody else
Mm.
who was involved in it.
Yeah, no,
All right.
I wouldn't disagree with you there. By the way, I don't know if you saw this news. I'm a little concerned because now they're saying that the list doesn't match. The list of the people that Hamas said they were going to release today isn't matching with what the list that they got, the list that they expected. So I'm worried about those babies and the mom. I'm very concerned that they are not on this list that Hamas sent. And that I will see, but that remains to
Well,
be seen.
let me say this. A lot of this also, as a thank you, goes to the Qatari government, goes to Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, and it goes to Jordan, and it goes to
Cutter.
a multitude of different people who all have gotten together and called for the return of the hostages and a ceasefire.
Hmm.
And so each and every one of them deserves a thank you. Now, the mistake I think that Trump and his people are making is they want to take 100% credit.
Yeah.
It's the fear of Donald Trump entering the White House that got the ceasefire. It's Bibi Netanyahu who got the ceasefire and the hostage exchange. It's Joe Biden who put forth the same sort of policy and the same parameters 6, 7, 8 months ago that they followed just the other day regarding the release and the phases
Hmm.
of this ceasefire. Even if that's true, even if Biden had more of it than Trump, every single person that had their hand into it, and I don't care if it's even the secretary who got somebody onto a telephone and made the two people speak, they get a thank you also. Hostage negotiation is not an easy thing because of the level of the hatred
Yeah.
between the parties. So it took more than just Donald Trump. It took more than just Joe Biden. It took more than Bibi Netanyahu. It took surrounding neighboring countries as well to put pressure on Hamas. And due to of course, the harm that's been caused to Hezbollah, then, obviously they realized that they're in a weakened situation. So now was the right time to do it.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves a pat on the back.
Yeah, I want to pivot from that to talk about just real quick some of his cabinet picks because you're very familiar with Pam Bondi. I remember the phone call that you recorded I think you recorded it, right? Wasn't it Giuliani and Pam Bondi and Trump? It was your recording. Who's recording? You're on the recording, I think. There's a recording and with Pam Bondi. You're in the room or you're talking about Pam.
I think it's Lev Parnas.
Oh, that's Lev Parnas? Okay, so but you're familiar, obviously. You know
I'm
Pam.
familiar with it, but I had nothing to do with that. Don't get me in trouble now.
I'm not going to get in trouble, but I want to talk about some of his real
No.
quick. There is a phone call. I feel like there's a phone call that's referencing you. Maybe it's Rudy and it's Pam. I forget, but maybe you're not in the room. I forget. I'll find it. But I want to talk about some of his cabinet picks because Pam is obviously someone who has, let's say, done his bidding for the right price, maybe in the past. I think that's safe to say, or I mean, it's an accusation. But let's talk about her. Let's talk about Hegseth, because what do you think he would do, is going to do, because he's going to get confirmed unless Mitch does the right thing, which he's probably not. What is he going to do with someone like Pete Hegseth?
Not keep him all as long as people think. Remember in 2017, many of the cabinet members were out before the first year.
Yeah,
The
Tillerson.
shortest term, of course, is one Scaramucci,
Yeah.
which equals 11
Sessions.
days. You also had Sean Spicer. You had Reince Priebus. You had then
Rex
had
Tillerson.
What's that?
Rex Tillerson.
But listen, I mean, it was one after the other. Folks like Gary Cohen ended up leaving on his own.
The tactical
After,
pants guy, what was his name? Scott somebody Pruitt.
yep. I mean, it was a revolving door from day number one. And we're going to see that revolving door again, especially of those people, one, that don't do his bidding, two, that are incapable of even operating in the capacity that he nominated for them for. You know, there comes a point in time, and I hope people understand this and have seen this. Donald Trump has never been at fault. He's never been responsible for anything. If something good happens, it's 100% because of him. If something bad happens, it's always because of somebody else's mistake.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if Pete Hegseth, who has never run any type of a company greater than like what, 20 people?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is now going to be running a $900 billion agency. $900 billion. He's going to run that. And if it goes south and things don't go the right way, Trump is not going to turn around and accept accountability or responsibility or fault. It's Pete Hegseth. And then this is what people don't really understand. And I've been there. I'm the guy that used to be in the room. The knives that come out when you are wounded. I'm not talking about disabled. I'm not talking about deceased. I'm talking about wounded, right? The knives that come out for you, it's so intense that Trump ultimately throws up his hands. He's like, do you not understand? I really don't care. Get rid of him. Just throw her out.
No loyalty.
Who do we have to replace them?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens because Trump doesn't have loyalty to them. He has loyalty to himself, to his id, his ego, his super ego. And that's all he cares about. Everyone else is expendable. And if you give him a reason to be expendable, so long.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And I don't understand how people haven't figured this one out and they still keep signing up for it. But here's it, Michael, by the way, being in the room. Here it is. Tuesday evening, CNN released an audio recording between Donald Trump and his former attorney, Michael Cohen, in which the two discussed purchasing the story rights to an alleged affair between Playboy model Karen McDougal and then candidate Trump.
Yeah, that had nothing to do with Pam Bondi.
No, it does. So because Pam Bondi says the conversation happened in September 2016, right around the time records surfaced showing a potential pay-to-play donation of $25,000 to Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. And then this is the thing. Pam Bondi says it sounds like they're talking about me on this audio tape because in the transcripts there where you guys are talking about, it sounds a whole lot like Pam Bondi. You didn't get rid of this story. They're saying something. And Pam thought.
Get rid of the story was Stormy Daniels, which initially reared its ugly head in 2011 when the story appeared on a website called thedirty.com. We were successful in having it removed, and Trump believed that it was removed forever, which, by the way, it was up until the point that he became the nominee, and we were just several weeks out from the election, where Stormy Daniels decided, hey, there's some money in this thing for me.
Yeah. This one is, well, it's when
Pam Bondi was involved in the Trump University matter.
Yeah, a $25,000 donation to Pam made in 2013.
By the way,
not
that
to
25
pursue the
wasn't
fraud
even
case.
more from him. I think I was 5,000 of it.
Yeah, I don't know. It says the most damning part of Cohen's recording is clearly when Trump appears to instruct the lawyer to pay in cash. It's worth noting that the recording also seems to strongly indicate the presidential candidate was talking to Bondi over the phone about the lawsuit with his embattled for-profit school. I don't know. Well, either way,
Okay.
Pam Bondi, what do you think about, Pam Bondi as AG and Cash Patel, by the way?
Okay. So we have to separate the two of them out. Pam Bondi, on paper, is more than qualified to be the attorney general.
Yeah, agreed. On paper, yeah.
On paper. The question becomes, does she uphold her oath to protect the Constitution and to our democratic republic? Or does she not even take the oath and pledge her fealty to the president? Mm-hmm. That becomes the question, because as somebody who knows, unfortunately, too well what happens when an attorney general pledges their fealty and their loyalty to the president over the Constitution, as Bill Barr did to me, right? Yeah. You know, like my little book here, how Donald Trump weaponized the United States Department of Justice against his critics. When I say Donald Trump, it's his administration, but it was Bill Barr who did the whole thing. Mm-hmm. By the way, I would love, since Trump is so fast right now to put out MLK, JFK, RFK documents, how about release all 480,000 documents on me in regard to the unconstitutional remand?
He won't do that.
Why not? I'm going to send a letter asking him to do it.
Good. Why not? He won't, because it has none of his interest in mind, right? He wants the salacious headline and the credit for making the historic release of these, classified documents.
What if hypothetically it was Democrats who did it at the beginning? Just speculating, right? What if the goal was to take him down? There's 480,000 documents in there that will point to what really went on here. What if Trump didn't even know what Bill Barr was doing?
I mean, I don't know. I don't think that that's the case, but also because I don't think Bill Barr would have found it incumbent upon himself to take out Trump's retribution onto you without Trump's say-so or directive or Trump's
maybe approval. He was trying to impress him. Maybe he was trying to, to show him, you see, boss, I don't even need for you to tell me what to do, right? I did it. Look what I did. Look what I did, boss. like the bloviated asshole lapdog that he is.
Well, let's talk about Kash Patel. Talking about bloviated lapdogs. Kash Patel is no Pam Bondi. Kash Patel has there's not even a debate, right? There's no debate. He doesn't give a shit about oaths, constitutions. He has a hit list. He has an enemies list. I don't think he's going to hesitate for 1 second. I don't know that he's going to get through. He probably will, because everything's so fucked up. But he wouldn't hesitate to doing whatever bidding, even on his own, like you just said about Barr. Patel will go after his own people on his own accord. He knows Trump will be happy about, and then Trump can wash his hands of it, just like he does everything. But what do you think about Kash Patel?
Well, first of all, we call that plausible deniability. That the president didn't even know about it. I think Kash Patel is dangerous. I've read more than a handful of the excerpts from his book. And I have to say that we are very, very far apart from one another on our positions in terms of what the FBI is really supposed to be about and what they're supposed to do. They're not supposed to be the president's hit squad or brown shirts. You're not supposed to be using the FBI or the military, for that matter, to go after U.S. citizens. You see, it's interesting because Trump always plays the victim. He's always the victim. They went ahead and they raided my home at Mar-a-Lago. First and foremost, it's not his home. It's a social club. And when they raided it, there were, about 100+ members that were there eating. So it's not, maybe that's where he lives. You want to call it, that's his home. All right. It's not his home. His home is technically on Fifth Avenue. His home could be Seven Springs, right? In Westchester. His home could be across the street. He has several houses that he owns across the street from Mar-a-Lago on the water. All right. Those could be your home, but a commercially zoned social club, because it's magnificent, that just isn't his home. But his comment was that it was unlawful, it was unconstitutional. The FBI had a validly executed warrant signed by a magistrate within which to go into Mar-a-Lago and to locate and to seize documents that belonged to NARA, the National Archives. That's what they did. And they did it on a tip, a pretty well-sourced tip based upon who the informant was. Now, I'm just talking speculating. I'm pulling this out of my ass, but I've been saying this now for years. I believe that Jared and or Ivanka or Javanka, as I like to call them, were the source.
Why?
It's amazing to me that Jared has had no legal repercussions in several times. I know that there were sealed indictments that had his name attached to it. He has also this unholy relationship with MBS. I mean, imagine he's had absolutely, from a guy who was the secretary of everything, from a guy who, right, literally days before they were leaving the White House, took over the entire pardon office. All right. And we know, based upon reportings from the New York Times and others, that it was a pay to play.
Oh, yeah.
Lev Parnas talks about it. Rudy Kaludi, drunken Giuliani, talks about it, right? That they were going out there, they were looking, if you had money, you could buy your pardon.
Yeah.
All right. Jared never saw a single indictment or a single question for a guy who was legitimately the secretary of everything. I don't know. Maybe he made a deal. It just reminded me, you know what made me think of that he and or Ivanka were the responsible party was I was watching, what's the movie, White something or another, which is about Whitey Bulger. And how Whitey Bulger, who was a gangster in Massachusetts, I think in Boston, how he was able to do the things that he did, including even committing murder, and never saw repercussion for many, many, many years because he was a very important informant. So I was watching the movie, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's kind of like." It's kind of like what I think about who else would know what's in Trump's office at Mar-a-Lago if it's not somebody whose family.
Yeah, and neither of them made a return to this administration, and they pretty much kind of like walked away. And nobody's really looking at Jared's deal with MBS, which they could very well have been looking at when they had all the majorities, but they didn't. It's interesting. So I'm going to wrap up with just final thoughts, Michael. Moving forward, what are you going to be looking for, bracing for? What do you think, people can do to sort of fight if you advise people to do that, or how you think people can use their voices right now to stand up and speak out against some of these things that are happening?
Well, what you need to do is you need to remain vigilant. And when I say vigilant, I'm not talking about being vigilant the way that MAGA is vigilant. I'm saying attach yourself to a community like JoJo's community, right? My YouTube channel, The Michael Cohen Show, or Political Beatdown that I do with Ben on the Midas Touch Network. Hook yourself in so that you are constantly in the know, because what will happen is there will come a point in time that everyone is going to need to get together, and we're going to be able to then use the power of our vote come 2026 in the midterm to right wrongs. And again, I want to be very clear about this. If there are wrongs, like right now, there's a lot of things that I don't like. There are some things I don't really care about. I'm okay with. They don't bother me at all. But there are many things that are being signed via executive decisions that I have a real fundamental problem with. These executive actions are, as far as I'm concerned, just immoral, right? They're not illegal, but I just find them to be immoral. So stay vigilant, because if things go wrong, we all need to ensure that we're able to get the vote out, because there's nothing more powerful than the vote, because it's the power to vote that is what created our democratic republic in the first place. Now, I want to just leave you with this last hypothetical. What if, because I like to play the hypotheticals.
Okay.
What if the things that Trump is doing by executive action actually ends up causing a benefit to the country? See, people, especially when you are left of center, it's always doom and gloom. What if hypothetically the mass deportation actually creates some sort of a benefit? I know, just bear with me a second.
Okay.
What if the annexation of Canada creates a benefit to America? What if the taking of the Panama Canal creates a financial benefit and stops Russia and China from doing a lot of the things that they're doing, which actually goes through the Panama Canal? What if annexing or taking over creates, again, a benefit for America? Right? And again, just hear me out on this. What if? You know what ultimately happens then? You're going to see a ton of people left of center, right? Former Democrats turning around saying, you know what? I don't like everything that the guy's saying. I don't like the bulk of what he's saying. But if he accomplishes a handful of this stuff, the conversation that's going to surround him is, despite all of these odds, despite all of the actions against him, this guy can get shit done.
Yeah.
And he's getting shit done because he's unconventional, which is exactly what the country needs. Let me tell you what ultimately happens there. Trumpism ends up taking and stomping on the Constitution.
I mean, that's already there, but Michael, I hear you, but I could also, what if Ewan McGregor proposes to me tomorrow and I start shitting gold bricks? I mean, we've seen this already with Donald Trump, right? His unconventional thinking
Send me two or three of them.
Didn't get us anything. We ended up saddled with more debt relative to the size of our economy, the third largest ever, right? We ended up losing jobs, and you can't blame all that on the pandemic. We ended up with at least 500,000 Americans who had died on his watch and died later, not just because he dithered and delayed and downplayed, but also because post, all of that, he then weaponized vaccines and turned people against public health. So what if? We don't have to what if anymore with Donald Trump. We have 4 years to look at, none of which, by the way, ended up being the golden age of America.
History doesn't necessarily always repeat itself.
Let me hear me out. Hear me out, though, because we don't just, but you can't what if this stuff, because it's also, I will argue, that none of the things that he's actually doing or proposing to do or has already signed an executive order are even designed to be better for America. You tell me how expanding the death penalty is better for America, for closing of the gun violence prevention office in the White House and reversing some rules on, fair hiring and discrimination from the 60s is really designed to be better for America. I would argue with you that there isn't even a framework that is actually attainable for any of this to be better for America. This is all about clearing the way, I believe, for dismantling.
Don't say that.
What's the upside?
Okay, well,
what's the upside to closing the Office of Gun Prevention?
Let me give you one upside.
Potential upside, even.
Let me give you one potential upside. Drill, baby, drill.
We're already doing that. We're already drilling more than any country has in the history of
I understand, but there's 360 billion barrels of, as Donald will like to call it, liquid gold underneath our feet. If we start to really extract it, we have more oil than Iran, Russia, and Saudi Arabia combined.
That's not what I'm talking about, though.
But my point is, imagine if we're able to pull it out and we become the global leader in the sale of oil. Now, again, just hear me out. We ultimately get rid of this $37 trillion debt that we have saddled our children with.
8 of which is from him.
Okay, but whoever it's from.
24 of which would he be adding with his new tax cut? 24 more.
Understood. But maybe we can get rid of it with the drill, baby, drill idea. My only point is that would end up making people believe that he is the right guy for the job. I want to just say one last crazy thing here. There's already a Republican that has drafted a bill to give Donald Trump yet another term come
But
You're
yeah,
back
a
to
third term. Yeah.
2028.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that's not constitutional. But secondly, won't get ratified. But thirdly, like he's not going to survive. It's like the guy is really looking like shit. Let's be honest. You know him, and he looks like shit. He sounds like shit. You can't sustain being 90% hamburger grease, Adderall, and aspartame, and not getting any physical activity at his age for that much longer. I'm just going to put that out there. There's 3 terms he doesn't have in him, but I also don't think that I mean, as fucked up as everything is, that's ridiculous. And that's just
So
one of those
let
little,
me just also say, though,
they're
he's
trying
not
to
on let me just
distract
say, he
us.
doesn't take Adderall.
No?
No,
No.
no,
Okay. No.
no,
So the giant saucer eye thing and all
no,
the burst of energy thing and just
no
random.
Adderall.
Okay. I mean, I've heard from Noel Castler that that's not true, but
Yeah, I've been in his desk drawers. There's no Adderall. I've
okay.
been around him for more than a decade, and
All
so
right.
on. No,
So then
no
his
Adderall.
blood type is,
I've seen him take Claritin. I've
yeah.
seen him take his bare aspirins, but I've
Well, let's
never
just
seen him
say
take
blood
Adderall.
type is not. We'll pause on Adderall. It's still add aspartame and hamburger grease. That part is true. But we will definitely be paying attention, Michael. And you and I, again, we come from vastly different sort of origin stories. But at the end of the day, we are still, I believe, on the right side of history. And I appreciate your voice and your tenacity. I appreciate your perspective on everything, as you know. And I will be checking in on you because you're my friend. And look, I'd love to hope for a lot of things that'll be coming out of this time frame. But what I'm really hoping for the most is that the American people, that the pendulum swing that comes back in the other direction is one that bends towards justice and humanity and connection
With
to
you
each
on
other.
that.
Yeah, so that's, you know what? If I'm hopeful about anything, I'm hopeful about that. So that's what I'm going to hang my hat on. It's going to work towards building more community, that's the antidote to all of all the
It's
depravity
all
and all.
about building the community,
It is.
Jojo.
Yeah.
And the bigger this community grows, and the stronger that this community grows, the better likelihood that 2026 is going to go in a way that will ensure that all of my what ifs, which again are hopeful what ifs, but all of those what ifs go away.
Yeah.
Now
Well,
it becomes a certainty.
yeah, well, you're right. And I do think I mean, we need New Jersey to win our governor's race too, but I do think that pendulum swing is going to be mighty because it's going to have to be, because we're not going to be able to sustain the way things are going for long if we don't swing back hard. But Michael, so you've got the podcast. You want to plug anything? I mean,
I have my Mea Culpa podcast. This is
Mhm.
one with the blue background icon.
Mm-hmm.
I also have Political Beatdown, which is live Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4:30 to 5:30. Number one news show, 4:30 to
Congrats.
5:30 on YouTube in the
Awesome.
world.
I finally
In the
met
world.
Ben in DC.
Yep.
Yeah.
On top of that, I also have on YouTube my Michael Cohen show, which we now have like 256,000 subscribers. Yeah, it's meteoric. I mean, we have over 17, 18 million views so far. It's really taken off.
That's
And you know
awesome.
what? It's raw, like me. It's unfiltered, like me.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, it's factually based. There's no innuendo. It's all factually based. I do throw out the what ifs, but I only do that to make people think, right? Yeah, we could be hopeful, not optimistic, but hopeful. But when that hope disappears, that's when this community, that's when all of our communities need to join, coalesce into one mighty frickin' force
I'm
and
trying to
make
build.
sure that you get your ass to the ballot box.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to build, my friend. That's what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to bring. I swear, it's like a mob sort of a setup. I want to bring all the big houses together. I want to bring all the different people from all the different edges of this thing, and I want to bring them together so that we can build this thing.
Well,
So we
that's
can...
what I want to see from you to do, my dear. All right, that's what you need to do.
I'm from Jersey, you know. I know a few things. I might be Lebanese, but I look Italian and I have an Italian last name, so people think I'm Italian. So that works for me. But Michael, thank you so much for talking to me.
Jojo, always great to see you.
Yeah, and yeah, we'll be in touch, and we got to get together. We owe each other a drink. Everybody, that concludes this episode of the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. Stay safe, stay sane-ish. Stay away from, I don't even know. Just stay away from dangerous things, forks and sockets or something. But thanks, Michael, for being here, and take care of yourself. I'll be looking out for you as well. And see you guys next week. Bye.
Thank you.